What if the greatest Hollywood comeback story wasn't about career resurrection? It was about a man learning to survive the unthinkable. At 71 years old, John Travolta just revealed a truth that reframes everything we thought we knew about him. And it's not just one tragedy. It's a pattern of loss so devastating that most people would have given up decades ago. You know him as Danny Zuko or Vincent Vega, the guy who danced his way into legend. But behind every iconic performance lies a story of cancer striking his life not once, not twice, but 3 times, each time taking someone he loved deeply. Add his teenage son's shocking death, an extortion attempt, and years of public humiliation, and you're looking at a level of grief that seems impossible to survive. Yet somehow, John Travolta found a way not just to survive it, but to rebuild his life and show the world what real resilience actually looks like. So in this video, we're breaking down the complete truth about the man behind the legend, from his first devastating loss at 23 years old to the powerful lessons about grief and healing he's sharing today that are helping millions of people navigate their own heartbreak. Most people know John Travolta as one of Hollywood's brightest stars. They remember him from Saturday Night Fever, gliding across that dance floor in that iconic white suit, defining an entire generation's idea of cool. Then came Grease, where he made millions fall in love with Danny Zuko, and who could forget Pulp Fiction, the dark, charismatic, utterly unforgettable Vincent Vega. These roles made him a legend. They made him immortal in the eyes of cinema. But here's what most people don't realize. Behind every one of those brilliant performances, John Travolta was quietly enduring a level of personal tragedy that would destroy most human beings. While he was dancing on screen, he was grieving in real life. While audiences were cheering his comebacks, he was burying the people he loved most. This isn't just another celebrity tragedy story. This is the documented account of a man who lost 3 women to the same disease across 3 different decades. A man who watched his teenage son die unexpectedly. A man who faced an extortion attempt during his darkest moment. And yet somehow, at 71 years old, he's not just surviving, he's teaching the world how to actually live again. The question everyone's asking now is simple. How did he do it? How does someone endure that much loss without completely falling apart? And more importantly, what did he finally decide to reveal that changed everything? That's what we're exploring today, because John Travolta's real story is far more powerful than any script Hollywood could have written. When John Travolta was just a young kid from New Jersey trying to break into Hollywood, he landed a role in a TV movie called The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. It was 1976, and he was only 23 years old, nervous, ambitious, desperate to prove himself. The movie was a tearjerker about a teenager with a compromised immune system, exactly the kind of emotional drama that networks loved casting fresh young talent in. But nobody could have predicted what would happen on that set. Enter Diana Hyland. She was an established actress, 41 years old, cast to play his mother in the film. On paper, it made sense. She had the experience, the gravitas, the screen presence. What nobody expected was the chemistry that ignited between them the moment they started working together. Despite the age gap, despite her literally playing his mother on screen, John was completely captivated. He later told reporters that he'd thought he was in love before, but he hadn't. Not really. From the moment he met Diana, something shifted inside him. They were like 2 maniacs on set, he said, talking constantly, finishing each other's sentences, completely lost in each other's world. Within a month, their friendship had blossomed into romance. It was intense, passionate, the kind of connection that feels like destiny when you're in your 20s. They were making plans for the future, picking out houses, talking about moving in together, discussing marriage. John was simultaneously filming Saturday Night Fever, the movie that would catapult him to superstardom, and none of it mattered compared to the woman he'd found. But Diana had a secret she hadn't told John at first. She'd been diagnosed with breast cancer back in 1975 and had undergone a mastectomy. When they started dating, she genuinely believed the worst was behind her. She had every reason to hope. They both did. Then everything changed. Diana's health started deteriorating rapidly. The cancer had spread, and what had seemed like a triumph over the disease became a nightmare. On March 27, 1977, Diana Hyland died in John's arms. He was holding her, feeling her life slip away, experiencing a loss that most people don't face until much later in life. At 23 years old, John Travolta had found real, deep love. And cancer had stolen it from him. Most people grieve in isolation, processing their pain in private, trying to move forward with their lives. But John Travolta didn't get that luxury. Just when he was beginning to find his footing again after Diana's death, just when the wounds were starting to heal, cancer came back into his life through the one person who'd always been his rock, his mother, Helen Travolta. Helen wasn't just any mother. She was the reason John had a career in entertainment at all. Born Helen Cecilia Burke, she'd been an actress and singer herself, performing with a radio vocal group called the Sunshine Sisters. She understood the entertainment world, understood her son's dreams, and had nurtured that spark in him from childhood. The Travolta household was filled with music, drama, and creativity. Helen was the fire that ignited the flame in all 6 of her children, but she was also John's protector. Friends from his childhood remember that John had a vulnerability about him, a gentleness that made people want to take care of him. And Helen understood that better than anyone. She saw her youngest son the way only a mother can, not as the future Hollywood star, but as the sensitive boy who needed extra care. When Helen was diagnosed with breast cancer just 18 months after Diana's death, she made a heartbreaking decision. She didn't tell John right away. She'd watched her son grieve Diana, watched him struggle to put the pieces back together, and she couldn't bear to add to his pain any sooner than necessary. Helen wanted to protect him, even from her own illness, but eventually the truth had to come out, and when it did, John's world shattered all over again. This time, though, he became a caregiver. He visited his mother almost every day, sitting by her bedside, trying to keep her spirits up in any way he could. And here's something that reveals the kind of person John really is. He performed for his mother. He'd sing, do little musical numbers, anything to bring light to her darkest days. It's a testament to the bond they shared through performance and art. On December 3, 1978, Helen Travolta died at the age of 66. Cancer had won again. For John, it left what he described as a huge void in his life. He'd now lost 2 of the most important women in his life to the exact same disease, breast cancer, in less than 2 years. And if that wasn't enough to bear, his career was hitting turbulence too. The disco era that had made him a star was dying. His follow-up films were flopping. Critics were questioning whether John Travolta was just a flash in the pan. Personal tragedy and professional crisis had collided perfectly, and John, still in his mid-20s, was drowning in loss and uncertainty. But somehow he kept going. The 1980s weren't kind to John Travolta. While he was grieving the 2 most important women in his life, his career was in freefall. Disco was dead. Critics had written him off. Hollywood had moved on to the next big thing. It would have been easy for John to give up entirely, to disappear into his pain and never resurface. But by 1988, something shifted. John was ready to take another chance on love. While filming a movie called The Experts, he met an actress named Kelly Preston. Kelly was beautiful, talented, and warm, everything John needed after years of heartache. They clicked immediately, connecting on a level that felt like healing. By 1991, they got married in a midnight ceremony in Paris. It was romantic, hopeful, a fresh start for a man who'd seen so much darkness. For a while, it seemed like John's luck was finally changing. In 1992, they welcomed their first child, a son they named Jett. 2 years later came their daughter, Ella Blue, and in 2010, another son, Benjamin. On the surface, John Travolta had everything he'd dreamed of: a loving wife, beautiful children, and a career that had rebounded spectacularly. His critically acclaimed performance in Pulp Fiction had made him relevant again. He was dancing, he was acting, he was living, but life had other plans. John and Kelly discovered that Jett had been born with autism and suffered from seizure disorders. It was a private struggle, something the family chose to keep away from the spotlight. But it didn't diminish their love for their son. If anything, it intensified it. John became a devoted father, rarely going anywhere without Jett, always keeping him close. Friends and neighbors in the Bahamas, where the family often vacationed, remember seeing John and Jett together constantly, the love and affection between them obvious to everyone. John was the kind of father who'd do anything for his children, and Jett was his world. They had a special bond, something sacred and unbreakable. John never complained about the extra care Jett needed. He never saw it as a burden. It was simply his life, his love, his commitment to his son. For a moment, it seemed like John Travolta had finally found peace. He had the family he'd always wanted. He had a wife he loved deeply. He had work that mattered. But the universe wasn't finished testing him yet. On January 2, 2009, the Travolta family was on vacation in the Bahamas, celebrating the new year at their home in the West End resort. It was supposed to be a time of joy, a time to make memories with the people you love most. Jett was now 16 years old, with a history of seizures. He typically experienced one every 5 to 10 days. The family had taken every precaution possible, employing 2 nannies, installing alarms on bathroom doors, doing everything in their power to keep him safe. But around 10 in the morning on that January day, one of the nannies woke John and Kelly with news that would destroy them. Jett was unresponsive on the bathroom floor. John ran downstairs and immediately started performing CPR on his son. He fought to save him with everything he had, doing everything he could, but it was too late. Jett had suffered a seizure, hit his head on the bathtub, and the injury was fatal. At just 16 years old, Jett Travolta was gone. In an instant, John lost the child he'd dedicated himself to, the boy he'd never gone anywhere without, the son whose life had become inseparable from his own. The family attorney later said that John never dreamed this could happen, that their relationship was so close, so special. To bury your son is the worst thing you can ever do, he said. And John was heartbroken in a way that words couldn't capture. But the nightmare didn't end there. In the aftermath of Jett's passing, an ambulance driver and a former Bahamian senator attempted to extort $25 million from John and Kelly. They threatened to release private information about Jett's death, trying to profit from the family's tragedy. John testified at a high-profile trial, forced to relive his son's death in court, forced to defend his family's privacy while dealing with unimaginable grief. Eventually, the stress became too much for the family to bear, and John dropped the case. The whole ordeal added layers of trauma to an already unbearable situation. Here was a man trying to grieve his son, trying to protect his family, and instead he was dragged through a public spectacle. In 2010, Kelly gave birth to Benjamin, and John told reporters that the baby had given their house a renewed spirit. They were healing slowly, finding ways to honor Jett's memory. John created the Jett Travolta Foundation to help children with special needs, turning his pain into purpose. But while they were rebuilding their lives, while they were trying to move forward, cancer was waiting in the shadows. Ready to strike one more time. In 2018, Kelly Preston received news that must have felt like a curse coming full circle. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, the same disease that had taken Diana Hyland and Helen Travolta decades earlier. For John, it had to be a waking nightmare, a cruel and devastating repetition of history. But Kelly made a choice that speaks volumes about her character and her desire to protect her family. She kept her diagnosis almost completely private, no public statements, no social media posts about her battle, no seeking sympathy or attention. Instead, she fought quietly, receiving treatment at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, one of the best cancer facilities in the world. For 2 years, Kelly underwent chemotherapy, radiation, and whatever treatments her doctors recommended. She kept working when she could, appearing alongside John in the 2018 film Gotti, where she played Victoria Gotti to his John Gotti. It would be her last film role, though nobody knew it at the time. Meanwhile, John watched his wife battle the same enemy that had taken his first love and his mother. He'd been through this twice before. He knew how it ended. He knew the progression, the deterioration, the inevitable outcome. But still, he hoped. Maybe modern medicine had advanced enough. Maybe Kelly would be the one to beat it. He supported her through treatments, cared for their children, tried to keep life as normal as possible while his world was slowly crumbling again. After the Gotti premiere, Kelly essentially disappeared from the public eye. No more red carpets, no more interviews, no more Instagram posts showing the picture-perfect family life. Those close to the family knew something was wrong, but Kelly's privacy was respected. She was fighting a battle that nobody needed to see, but cancer doesn't care about hope or fairness or how much you've already suffered. On July 12, 2020, Kelly Preston lost her battle with breast cancer. She was 57 years old, gone too soon, leaving behind John and their 2 children, Ella and Benjamin. John announced her passing on Instagram with a message that was both heartbreaking and dignified. He thanked the doctors and nurses at MD Anderson. He thanked their friends and loved ones who'd been there. He promised to take time away to be there for his children, who'd now lost their mother. For John Travolta, this marked the 3rd time breast cancer had stolen someone he loved. Diana at 41, his mother at 66, and now Kelly at 57. 3 women, 3 separate decades, the same devastating disease. And if you add Jett's tragic passing, you have a level of loss that most people can't even imagine. The question everyone was asking was simple: how does someone survive that? In the months following Kelly's passing, John Travolta did something unexpected. He opened up about grief in a way that most celebrities never do. In a series of interviews, he shared what he'd learned through decades of loss, and his words resonated with millions of people dealing with their own heartbreak. John explained that mourning is deeply personal, that everyone's journey through grief is completely different. He'd learned that you can't rush it, can't force it, can't let other people's sadness overwhelm your own process. And here's something profound that he discovered. After Kelly died, he felt saturated with everyone else's grief. People reached out with love and support, which he appreciated deeply, but their sadness sometimes felt bigger than his own, leaving no space for him to actually mourn. He realized something crucial. When you're grieving, the first thing you should do is go to a place where you can process it without interference. Otherwise, it becomes like two boats sinking together, he said, and that doesn't help anyone. His advice was simple but revolutionary. Allow people to live through their grief. Don't complicate it with yours. Give them space. Don't add your sadness to their burden. Let them find their own path through the darkness. For several years after Kelly's passing, friends said John was just existing. He was going through the motions, caring for Ella and Benjamin, but not really living. The spark that had defined him, that charisma, that joy, that infectious energy, seemed dimmed by endless loss. He focused entirely on his children, helping Ella pursue her acting career, raising Benjamin, making sure they were okay. But somewhere in that process of caring for them, John forgot to care for himself. He was surviving, but he wasn't living. There's a difference, and then something shifted. By 2024, 4 years after Kelly's death, John started showing signs of genuine healing, not that he'd forgotten Kelly or stopped grieving. But he began to understand that honoring her memory didn't mean spending the rest of his life in sadness. It meant choosing to live fully, the way she would have wanted him to. It meant understanding that grief and joy aren't mutually exclusive. You can miss someone deeply and still choose to smile. This realization, earned through unimaginable pain, became a gift he shared with the world. There's a moment in everyone's life where they have to choose. They can either let their pain define them forever, or they can choose to live despite it. John Travolta made that choice, and what happened next is nothing short of remarkable. By late 2024, at 71 years old, John took his daughter Ella to the Paris Olympics. It wasn't just any trip. It was a spontaneous adventure filled with 5-star hotels, Michelin-starred restaurants, museum tour, and sporting events. Friends who saw him there noticed a change in him, a lightness they hadn't seen in years. The old John was back, the one who knew how to laugh, how to enjoy life's luxuries, how to make memories that mattered. He started traveling more extensively. He began checking items off his bucket list. He became extraordinarily generous with his time and resources. He pilots his own planes, takes his kids on adventures, surrounds himself with friends who make him laugh. He's not running from grief. He's choosing to celebrate life while keeping the memories of those he's lost close to his heart. And here's what makes this so powerful. John hasn't stopped honoring Kelly's memory. He posts tributes on her birthday. He remembers her on Mother's Day. He keeps her present in their lives. But that doesn't mean he can't enjoy living. He's learned to talk about death openly with Benjamin, helping his youngest son understand that grief is natural but doesn't have to define you. When Benjamin expressed fear that John might die too, John gently explained the differences, offering comfort while being honest about life and mortality. It's the kind of parenting that comes from experience, from having navigated loss multiple times and learning how to survive it. At 71 years old, John Travolta is in what he calls a good emotional and physical place. He's traveling the world, spending quality time with his children, making up for lost years. Kelly will always be part of his life, he said, but that doesn't mean he can't enjoy living. And that's the lesson John's teaching all of us, that there is life after devastating loss, that you can honor the dead while still choosing joy. That resilience isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up, dusting yourself off, and deciding that the people you've lost would want you to smile again. John Travolta's story isn't just about tragedy, though there's certainly been plenty of that. It's about something deeper, something that speaks to the core of human resilience. This is a man who lost 3 women he loved deeply to the same disease, who watched his teenage son die suddenly, who faced attempted extortion during his darkest moment, and still found the strength to keep going. Most people would crumble under a fraction of that weight, but John didn't. He bent, he broke. He spent years learning how to breathe again, but he survived. What makes John's journey so powerful is his willingness to be vulnerable about it. In an industry that often demands perfection and strength, John has been refreshingly honest about grief, about struggle, about the messy reality of loss. He's shown that it's okay to not be okay, that healing isn't linear, that everyone's path through darkness looks different. His openness has helped countless people dealing with their own losses feel less alone, less broken, more understood. In a world obsessed with celebrity perfection, John Travolta chose authenticity. He chose to show his scars instead of hiding them. And in doing so, he gave permission to millions of people to grieve openly, to struggle publicly, to be human. He's become an unexpected voice for anyone who's ever wondered how to survive when life keeps taking the people you love most. Through his vulnerability, he's started important conversations about cancer, about loss, about the real cost of grief. He's shown that talking about these things doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. There's something profoundly moving about watching John Travolta rediscover joy at 71 years old. After everything cancer has taken from him, after burying his son, after decades of heartbreak, he's choosing to live fully. He's traveling with his children, creating new memories, allowing himself to smile and laugh and experience the world's beauty again. It doesn't mean he's forgotten Diana or his mother or Kelly or Jett. It means he's honoring them by not giving up, by showing that love is stronger than loss, that life continues even when you think it can't. John once said something that perfectly encapsulates his philosophy of life. If he dies tomorrow, the last thing he wants to see is everyone around him sunk in sadness. That perspective earned through unimaginable pain is a gift to all of us. It's permission to grieve fully but not forever, to remember lovingly but not obsessively, to move forward without guilt. There is life after cancer. Not just for those who survive the disease, but for those of us left behind when it takes someone we love. John Travolta's story proves that the human spirit is more resilient than we often give it credit for. Even when cancer returns again and again, even when loss seems endless, there's still hope, there's still possibility, there's still joy waiting on the other side if we're brave enough to reach for it. And if John Travolta, who's endured more than most of us can imagine, can find his way back to living fully, maybe we all can. His journey from Saturday Night Fever to Pulp Fiction to his current life isn't just about Hollywood success. It's about something much more important. It's about the human capacity to survive, to heal, to choose life even after death has visited you repeatedly. So here's the real question we should all be asking. What can we learn from John's journey? How does his story change the way we think about grief, about loss, about survival? Do you agree with his approach to mourning, that it's deeply personal and everyone needs their own path? Have you or someone you love faced similar battles with cancer or devastating loss? How did you find the strength to keep going when it felt impossible? John Travolta's story matters because it reminds us that we're not alone. That grief is universal, that hopelessness doesn't have to be permanent, that the people we lose don't disappear. They live on in the way we choose to live, in the way we smile, in the way we love, in the way we refuse to let their absence define our future. At 71 years old, John Travolta is still dancing, still flying his planes, still living with purpose and joy and gratitude. And that's the most beautiful ending we could ask for, not the end of his story, but a new beginning, a reminder that after unimaginable tragedy, life goes on, and it can be beautiful again.